On the morning of January 7, 2018, a woman in Bozeman, Montana ran to her neighbor's house in a panic. She had just discovered her two roommates lying in pools of blood. 35-year-old Paul DeWise had been fatally shot, and 32-year-old Ashley Van Hammer was critically wounded with a bullet lodged in her brain. Suspicion immediately fell on Lauren's estranged husband, Paul DeWise, but when police brought Paul in for questioning, he provided a time-stamped receipt proving he was buying a six-pack of beer at a town pump convenience store at 12:34 a.m. His two teenage children, Joe and Natalie, corroborated his timeline. But detectives quickly realized the timeline wasn't something they had to piece together from external sources. Paul had archived his own behavior, hoarding thousands of videos, texts, and audio logs on his devices. The investigation moved from the crime scene to the hard drive. By meticulously scripting what he thought was a flawless legal defense for his separation, Paul unknowingly provided investigators with a minute-by-minute account of his own path to murder. For months, Paul actively staged his reality. He frequently set up a camera before confronting his wife, recording their arguments to frame Lauren as a drunk, abusive partner, while presenting himself as the calm, rational party. He used his camera to reshape unrelated events. When an altercation with a dog walker resulted in Paul being tackled and tearing his ACL, he used his cell phone footage of the aftermath to portray himself as a helpless father under attack by a hostile world. These early videos were not intended as family memories. Paul was laying the groundwork for a custody battle, building a digital cache designed to justify his own future actions. As the marriage deteriorated and Lauren moved into her friend's house, Paul's public vlogs gave way to a hidden digital footprint. His attempts to control the narrative shifted into active physical surveillance. He spent his nights lurking outside her friends' homes, snapping photos of parked cars in the dark. This is the exact type of GPS tracking module Paul ordered online, which he forced his son to watch him wire directly into Lauren's vehicle. The metadata from these tracking pings reveals the transition from a failing marriage to a criminal pursuit. Paul was now monitoring Lauren's every move, asserting a level of control that left her with nowhere to hide. Paul's habit of leaving recorders running eventually worked against him. His paranoia meant he rarely turned the devices off, often leaving them active in his pocket after he believed an argument had ended. These hot mic moments replaced his curated image with recorded evidence of physical abuse. The files contained explicit threats to end Lauren's life, including Paul identifying himself as a killer. The escalation reached its peak on the evening of January 6th. Paul sent Lauren a message asking to see her, and at 10:58 p.m., she texted back a final rejection. Paul grabbed a pistol, handed his 15-year-old son Joe a pair of gloves, and forced the teenager at gunpoint to march with him through the snow to Lauren's location. He kicked down the back door, systematically searched the rooms, and shot Lauren 4 times before shooting Ashley. Paul's obsession with control had finally crossed the line from digital manipulation to fatal violence. Investigators turned to Paul's own data to dismantle his version of events. Police found boot prints of the snow outside the crime scene and matched them to a pair of boots documented in photographs stored on Paul's own phone. Next, they cross-referenced his digital logs. His Netflix history showed he watched Murderous Affairs earlier that evening. By plotting his 10:58 p.m. text against the estimated time of shooting and his 12:34 a.m. receipt, detectives identified the exact window of the killing. Even from a jail cell, Paul attempted to manipulate the outcome. He called his teenage daughter, Natalie, and instructed her to convince Joe to take the fall for the murder, claiming the boy would only be locked up for a short time. He failed. His alibi collapsed because the police didn't have to guess where he was or what he was doing. Paul provided them with an undeniable volume of his own evidence. Miraculously, Ashley Van Hammer survived the attack, though she suffered a stroke and lost the use of her left arm. A jury found Paul DeWise guilty on all counts, resulting in a total sentence of 220 years in a Montana state prison. Paul DeWise was so obsessed with trapping his wife in a false reality that he documented his every move, text, and threat. In the end, he turned his own meticulous recordings into the bars of the cage that will hold him for the rest of his life.